Ghost of Yotei is the definition of a safe sequel. Now, I know the semantics of that statement, and I know what that might imply. A lot of times, when people say a game is a safe sequel, they mean that the game did not meaningfully innovate on the games that came before it and largely stuck to the same formula, story, and gameplay. And yes, I will say, Ghost of Yotei has a very similar world and very similar gameplay to Ghost of Tsushima. But that does not mean the gameplay nor the world are bad at all. Sucker Punch's Ghost series isn't really about fitting as many quests and activities as possible into an open world. Nor is it about having the toughest and most dynamic gameplay. Nor is it about making the open world the most immersive open world gamers have ever seen. Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yotei are about exploration, beauty in the landscape, deep personal stories that focus on reflection, and in those aspects, Ghost of Yotei is better in almost every way. So let's talk about Ghost of Yotei, what it does right, what could be improved, and why Ghost of Yotei is the most beautiful game I've ever played. Before we begin, if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that like button and please consider subscribing to see more content like this. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We're only a couple hundred subscribers away. Hitting that subscribe button would really help me out. But yeah, guys, back to the video. First, let's talk about this game's world. Straight up, like I mentioned in the intro, this is the most beautiful game world I've ever experienced. Now, I mentioned this in my Assassin's Creed Shadows review, but I am someone who's very partial to Japan. I love the culture, the landscapes, and the architecture that Japan has to offer. And I think Ghost of Yotei beautifully recreates Japan's stunning landscape, albeit in a more idealized way. Whereas AC Shadows recreated the beauty and landscape of Japan more realistically, Ghost of Yotei stylizes the region of Ezo and Japan a bit more and gives us stunning vistas, landscapes, and colors. Every aspect of the world in Ghost of Yotei is exaggerated, but goddamn, it makes the game look so good. That intro sequence where we get the shot of the beautiful vista of Ezo with Mount Yotei to the left is one of the coolest opening shots to a game I've ever seen. Ghost of Yotei's vibe is simply unmatched when it comes to this. Ezo is broken up into 4 or so regions, each essentially sectioned off from the others. Every quest, story, shrine, activity is contained into each of these regions and never really go between the regions at all. Also, similarly to Ghost of Tsushima, Ezo doesn't really feature any sprawling cities, villages, or anything of that sort where there's more to do than just look around. For each region, there's a rest tavern where every vendor is located, giving you a centralized location to get all of your gear and upgrades. Ezo as a world is incredibly vast, much more so than Tsushima, and this vastness gives Ezo and Ghost of Yotei as a whole a very lonely feeling. There are a lot of activities and things to do outside of the main quest, but the way they are cleverly hidden into the natural world makes the activities never feel intrusive, and always a treat to do whenever you stumble onto them. My only nitpick regarding the game's world is that at times, it feels like the world is a bit too empty. I understand that this is an island off the coast of mainland Japan, and there likely wasn't much civilization out there yet during this time period, and I also understand that the game wants Atsu, the main character's journey, to feel lonely and daunting, but I think it would have been nice if one of the regions had an actual decently sized town that had things to do, quests to find, and activities to complete. Outside of this one small gripe though, I don't have much of an issue with the emptiness of the world. But while I love the beauty and the vibes that Ezo has to offer me, that isn't really even the best part about the world design. And if you've played Ghost of Tsushima, you know exactly where I'm going with this. The exploration in this game is by far the best exploration I've ever experienced in a video game. It's like every single system when it comes to the world, whether it's the intentional emptiness, or the stylized setting, or the intentional spots for grandiose views, all are there in service of the exploration. There is no minimap. In fact, when you aren't engaged in combat, there isn't a HUD at all. And so you are fully immersed into the world of Ezo and everything the game has to offer. The guiding wind is the only form of navigation, making a return from Ghost of Tsushima, and it is by far the best in-game navigation system I've ever experienced. Basically, if you place a waypoint on the map, which only shows the places you've explored or quests that you've unlocked in-game, you get a subtle wind effect that guides you in the direction of your objective marker. There isn't a navigation line that outlines a direct path, nor is there a waypoint in the actual world so you know where to go. The only way to find your objective is to follow the guiding wind. To me, this is the most unobtrusive navigation system I've ever seen, and it fully encourages you to explore on the way to your objective. You know, there's always that old adage that people use for Bethesda games where you get a quest, and on your way to the quest, you get sidetracked by like 15 other things on the way there, and that's how the game immerses you. And to me, Ghost of Yotei has that same experience, but way better. Stumbling onto a hot spring, or a shrine, or an enemy outpost to clear feels so damn natural because of the guiding wind. It never feels like a checklist item you have to cross off, because the game never tells you that this outpost, or hot spring, or shrine even exists in that area. So it's up to you to go out, explore the world, and find these activities. The only way to sometimes get some of these activities on your map is after completing a random in-world encounter. Sometimes an NPC will tell you that an activity of some sort is nearby and to check it out if you have the time. This sort of objective gathering feels natural because you had to earn the information by helping or doing something for someone, and you don't have it pre-unlocked on your map like a checklist item waiting to get a check mark. I could go on and on about the world of Ezo, how it makes me feel, the weird nostalgia I feel when exploring this world, the beautiful sights and scenes, and the quiet contemplation that Ezo encourages. I could keep going, but I'll just leave it at the fact that this is one of the best open worlds of any game I've ever played. It's not the biggest, the most technically advanced, the densest, but the way it makes me feel is something that I haven't felt from a game world in a long time. Last time I felt this way about a world was Cyberpunk 2077, a game that has almost no similarities to the game we're talking about today, but a game that also similarly invoked the feelings I have right now. Next up, let's take a look at the gameplay. Now, to me, this is where the game is most similar to Tsushima. The gameplay is still really fun and engaging, but there hasn't really been any changes made from its predecessor that warrants extra praise or attention. Instead of stances like in Ghost of Tsushima, where Jin would pick a stance based on the enemy type in the game, Atsu has multiple weapons that she switches between based on the enemy type. This system quite literally works the exact same way as Ghost of Tsushima, where depending on the weapon type the enemy is holding, or if they are one of the big brutes, you pick a weapon that best counters that enemy type. The only difference in this system worth mentioning is that enemies can now switch weapons midway through battle. This introduces a bit more difficulty, as there will be times when there are multiple enemies around you where you're frantically switching between weapons trying to take on every single enemy. It's fun, engaging, and challenging, albeit pretty basic, but it never really frustrated me in a way that I never felt disinterested in the combat during my playthrough. During encounters, I also feel as though the enemies have gotten a bit tougher. Enemies don't wait their turn to attack you anymore, they will attack you at once, so it's important you're dodging and parrying on time. Atsu can also die in a few hits, so it's important to master the parrying and dodging techniques. In the one-on-one samurai duels, I find myself dying a lot more often as well. Enemies have some pretty unique movesets and can string together pretty difficult attacks that are tough to dodge and parry. I like this slight challenge increase because towards the mid-end of Ghost of Tsushima, I felt as though I had mastered Jin's moveset, as well as could telegraph anything an enemy was trying to do. Aside from open combat, Atsu can also partake in a fair bit of stealth. The stealth in this game is almost straight ripped from Assassin's Creed, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either. Atsu can parkour up to the top of buildings or hide in tall grass and can jump down and assassinate people. It's a fun way to get a couple of guys before you're eventually found and all hell breaks loose. You also get access to a couple of bows and arrows, as well as some cool gadgets like a grenade and fire oil that allows you to light your sword on fire during combat to inflict greater fire damage. All of it is serviceable, good even, but doesn't really move the needle in any way from Ghost of Tsushima. Aside from combat, the next best thing about the gameplay is without a doubt the progression. The progression with the gear in this game just looks so fucking sick. And every armor set you find not only looks different, but it provides different buffs depending on the playstyle you want to have. Ghost of Yotei isn't like a typical RPG with leveling systems, upgrades, and finding loot on every dead enemy. You can only upgrade Atsu's abilities by finding shrines, which are found around the world, but also at every hostile camp you can clear. This makes every upgrade that you can get feel meaningful because they don't come around that often, and when they do, you have to work for them. On top of that, the way you find gear is just so cool. Every piece of armor comes with a quest attached to it, typically a story about a samurai legend and the history and rumors surrounding the armor. It's a fun way to engross the player in some Japanese folklore, while also providing an excuse to throw some mystical elements into the game. For example, one of the armor sets I found first made me go around and find wind chimes that were attached to random trees in the world. The only way to find the wind chimes though was to pull out the initial wind chime I had found and follow the direction in which the wind chime played the loudest. Is it realistic? Absolutely not. And in a game grounded in realism, it's a fun twist on Japanese mysticism that really adds to the feeling of the divine within the game. Overall, it may seem like I'm not the most high on the gameplay. That's not what I really mean when I say that there isn't anything new here. To me, the gameplay is still really fun, and the progression is still satisfying and unique. It doesn't matter that Ghost of Tsushima had already done this 5 years prior, because it's done again here in Ghost of Yotei just as well, and it's just as engaging as last time. So yes, would I have maybe liked a couple of more enhancements? Sure, maybe, but I honestly didn't expect them, nor do I think they were needed because the underlying system was already that good. The last aspect of this game that I want to talk about is the story. Now, keep in mind, a game's story is incredibly subjective to the player playing the game, but to me, I feel as though Ghost of Yotei's story is a noticeable step down from Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Yotei follows Atsu, a young shinobi returning to our homeland of Ezo to find and kill every member of the Yotei Six, a brutal gang that has been terrorizing Ezo for decades, and also the gang that killed her family when she was a child. Off the bat, this game's story didn't hook me as much as Ghost of Tsushima's story did, and the reason for that is twofold. For one, Ghost of Yotei's story is eerily similar to that of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Don't get me wrong, I do think Ghost of Yotei does it better, but in AC Shadows, a young female assassin's family is killed by a mysterious shadowy group for unknown reasons, and the game follows her quest for revenge against them. So, in a lot of ways, it felt as though I had seen this story before, and so it didn't really hook me as much. But the other reason, and the reason I feel more strongly about, is that Atsu's journey here is much more personal than that of Jin's, and thus it's lacking a bit of that historical nuance that Jin Sakai's story had, making his story feel bigger than just his personal beliefs and quarrels. What I mean by this is that Ghost of Tsushima's story is set during the Mongol invasion of the island of Tsushima. It is a real historical event that happened during that time period, and because of this, Jin's personal journey happens in conjunction with the game's backdrop and overall catalyst of Jin's story. You see Jin go from an honorable samurai to a honorless shinobi, wrestling with the fact that he's had to let his old life go because he feels that he must fight the Mongols with as much brutality as they have used on his people. It's why we got the famous "honor died on the beach" quote from him. Yes, his story is personal for him like Atsu's was. He saw his clan slaughtered by the invaders, and he desperately wants to avenge them. But there's more to it than just that. This was an actual historical event, and he's just a cog in that historical machine. Atsu's story is only set around her. there isn't really anything interesting going on historically within the world. So Eizo is just set as the backdrop of Atsu's story, not a physical story element itself like Tsushima was in Jin's story. And because of this, Ghost of Yotei has to rely on Atsu's characterization, the villains, and the supporting cast around her to become as engaging as Ghost of Tsushima's story. And while I love Atsu, and the characters around her are interesting, and the villains are cool and brutal, none of the characters reach the same level of depth that the characters from Ghost of Tsushima did. The dialogue is still phenomenal. Japanese people in this game love to talk in cryptic riddles and prophetic sayings, and I love that about them. And it's plentiful in this game's dialogue. Everything feels intentional and for the most part does serve a purpose. It's just difficult when there isn't that catalyst there to set off the journey like the Mongol invasion was for Jin. So all this to say, I think the story is well written, Atsu is a very solid main protagonist, the villains are cool, but the story itself is fundamentally less interesting than Ghost of Tsushima's, and because of that, it cannot reach the same highs Ghost of Tsushima's story did. Aside from the story itself though, the quest design is still well done. The acted cutscenes are great, if not too plentiful, and the overall variation in what you do in any one quest is still incredibly high. This game also does a phenomenal job of blending what is a side quest with what is a main quest, because both are given as much care as the other. Every story that this game wants to tell is well thought out, deep, and features twists and turns. Not one story is just a simple menial fetch quest, and that's great to see. All in all, I'm pretty conflicted on this game's story. It's good, better than a lot of games that have come out in the past 5 years, but it's tough to say it's better than Ghost of Tsushima's. And to me, that's the main game that this game should be compared against, because this is the direct sequel to that game. And to me, Ghost of Yotei's story is a very obvious step down from Ghost of Tsushima's. So unfortunately, I have to say it was a bit of a disappointment for me. Look, overall, I've had a fantastic time with Ghost of Yotei. To me, it is the perfect game to throw on my PS5, throw on some Watanabe mode with lo-fi beats in the background, and just ride my horse around, take in the sights, and kill some bad guys. It doesn't really do one thing particularly perfect, except for maybe the beautiful landscapes and colors, but it does enough in every category to keep me happy during my time with the game. Ghost of Yotei is not here as a game to be the most feature-packed or the one to try and hold your attention span the longest by throwing a new thing for you to do every 5 seconds. But that's kinda the point. Ghost of Yotei is a game meant for you to take slow, enjoy the sights, sounds, and just relax a little bit. And with the incredibly busy and hectic world we live in right now, maybe a game like this is just what we needed. Either way, that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down below your thoughts on Ghost of Yotei. Personally, I love this game. I've been having a hell of a time with it. It's just been so fun and beautiful to experience. I want to hear your thoughts down below. Again, if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that like button and please consider subscribing to see more content like this. I have a pretty cool Borderlands 4 review, as well as more reviews coming up. But yeah, guys, it's been CGG. I'm out.